Hi, I'm Christiana Gaudet. I am your tarot fairy godmother, and I'm here with a rant about crystals. Who would do a rant about crystals? I guess me. So, I am recording this during the winter festival season, as you can see by my beautiful backdrop and situation all going on here. If you happen to be watching this at a different time of year, that's fine. This is not holiday content. I just, I like holiday decor. And so here is my digital holiday decor. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about crystals. So, to preface this, let me say I am not a geologist. I am not a gemologist. I am not a crystal healer. And I don't do a lot of work professionally with crystals. But back in the 1980s, when I got into all of the things that I do now professionally, crystals were a huge part of it. They were a huge gateway in. When I first experienced what it was to hold a crystal, to feel its energy, to store energy in a crystal, to use crystal for healing simply by holding it to my body or breathing with it, I felt it and I found the power within it. Eventually, friends and I went crystal mining, quartz crystal mining, and we did that in Arkansas. I went twice, and it was a powerful experience, and I'm in a moment going to show you some crystals that I mined myself. But I also noticed while I was there that mining is brutal. It is brutal on the planet. And, over time, like when we talk about crystals that are ethically sourced, I don't know if there is such a thing. And I have questions about that. Now, and again, this is going back into the 1980s. It was only legal to go to the mines to get crystals at the mines. Native people, indigenous people, could go into the woods and find crystals. And they, I think, were able to do it in a way that was ethical. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I don't know that there are any mining situations other than indigenous mining traditions on the face of the planet that are ethical. So there's that conundrum, okay? And I don't have an answer for that conundrum, but there it is. The other thing that I want to share with you is I feel like as we become more and more versed in different types of semi-precious gemstones, different types of crystals and their uses, I think there are things that a lot of us don't seem to know, or a lot of people don't seem to know about good old quartz. So I'm just going to share a few things with you here. And this is really not much of a rant at all. It's more by way of education. So I want to start with this crystal cluster. And this was one that I mined in Arkansas and did not clean. When crystals come out of the ground, at least in Arkansas, you can see the red mud clay. Let me get this so you can really see it. Okay. You can see the red mud clay, and you can also see, sort of the yellowish deposits. That's not mud. To clean the crystals, we had to very careful so they wouldn't crack, boil them, and we'd do it in a big pot at the campsite. And we used, I don't remember what we used, but it was something we bought at the hardware store, a particular chemical that was used to turn, say, this into this. This was also a crystal that I mined in the same expedition. And so this would have looked like this originally. So lesson number one, when they come out of the ground, they don't look like they do, when you typically see them in the shop. But then more and more, and back in the 80s, we didn't like this at all. But now more and more, we are seeing crystal points that are fashioned, and they're fashioned in stones that don't necessarily naturally point. Now, we have these tumbled stones. This is a little rose quartz. And here's an amethyst. And I love these stones. I really do. And I think there's so much we can do with them. There's so much power we can find from them in divination, in healing. But of course, they didn't come out of the ground looking like this, right? But they have, you know, perhaps maintained some of the shape that they were found in. I don't know. Clearly, though, this is not the shape that rose quartz was found in. Clearly not. And this labradorite, and this is one of my favorite pieces. I love that. Can you see that? That's fabulous, right? But it certainly doesn't point like that. So the difference between a manufactured point and a natural point, I think, is really important. Now, does a manufactured point have value? Oh, heck yeah, it does. Absolutely. But does it have the same value as a natural point in its ability to heal, in its ability to conduct energy? I don't think so. I don't think so. I do not think that a manufactured point has the same power to be used as a conduit as does a natural point. Now, this is one. This was a gift, and I don't believe it's Arkansas. I think it's Brazilian. I've had it for a really long time. For those of you who know Ed Mondazzi, this was a gift from Ed Mondazzi. And do you see how it has little babies growing off of it? I love that. And do you see how it has these steps? We used to call those steps of knowledge. And, you know, this is an amazing thing that happens. This obviously broke off of a larger cluster, but if you feel it, it's smooth, and you can see it has healed. The crystal itself has healed. So when you use a crystal that has healed for healing, there's a lot of healing that happens there. So there's a natural point. This is a natural point. As I said, I found this in Arkansas. And this was pretty much how I found it, although it would have looked like this in color before I cleaned it. And you can still see that I didn't clean it all the way. And clearly there would have been other crystals coming out of it, but it has healed. I like to put a candle there maybe, right? That's fun. So there's that. And again, we see that healing process. Now, do all crystals come in clusters? Do they all grow in clusters? No, no. To me, the most spiritually valuable and the most powerful kind of quartz crystal is a naturally double terminated crystal. This is one I found in Arkansas. And you can see it's got a point here on one end and on the other here. Two different kinds of points. And you can see it's got a baby attached to it, which is also double terminated. So this would have grown on its own, right? Or maybe it was part of a cluster and then broke off and healed really well. I'm not a geologist. I don't really know. But I know that this, with a termination on both sides, is very different from something that clearly broke off of a cluster or something that clearly is a cluster, right? Maybe they all start as clusters and then they heal. Maybe that's what that is. But again, you know, it's a cool thing. Now, what inspired all of this is Laura sent me this recently, and it is another natural double terminated crystal. To me, that is like the most beautiful, powerful thing. And so if anyone knows, like, how do those double terminated crystals form? Do they just form on their own? Did they break off and heal? I don't know. I'd like to know. I don't know. I've never asked myself that question until right now. But I know that for me, this is the most powerful crystal for healing, even though it's small. And this will be too, because of that double termination. Now, here's a point that, clearly has broken off its cluster. Now, maybe if it were left in the ground for a long time, how long, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, I don't know. Maybe a few hundred, I just don't know. Maybe it would grow that other termination, I don't know. So, we've learned about clusters versus double termination. We've learned that manufactured points are different than natural points. And we've learned and we know that each sort of a mineral has different kinds of uses, different meanings in divination, different uses in healing. We know all of that. But I fear that in an age where you're going to find a lot more manufactured points than you're going to find natural points, that the power of natural points and the knowledge of natural points and the value, the idea, the understanding of the value of natural points could end up being lost. And that's my rant. I don't want that to happen. All right, my friends, thank you. If you have anything to add, any ideas, any thoughts, go ahead and share. I'd be very anxious to hear them. I really appreciate you. Thanks for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We do a lot of fun stuff on this channel. I'll look forward to seeing you soon.